SonnyHendricks.
How long have you been living on the reservation?
Oh, 65 years. 64 years.
How have you seen it change over the years? Or how's it stayed the same?
Well, when I was young, there was only a few families living here, and probably no more than 30, 35 people. And now there's over 200 people living here, and we've got about 75 homes.
We know from some of the books that those that came looking for gold tried to eliminate and exterminate and massacre Miwans. Can you recall any of those stories?
Yeah, I do, because we were told how they were treated, by our parents and their grandparents, that the horrible times that there was in this community. They were, when the Europeans came here, they just took over the land, and with their cattle and sheep grazing, and the Indian people were displaced and just reduced to certain areas that most people consider worthless, and so they had to makeshift the homes they had, and do what they could to survive.
But survive they did.
Yeah.
How?
Well, when you talk about Indian people, and this is one of the things that people don't realize, is the reason there's so much diversity in each tribe is because the Indian people, in whatever area they came from, their environment was their homeland, and so they had to learn everything about their environment. They knew everything, about the trees, and they lived by the seasons. People don't, understand that, but we all live by the seasons. It's nothing new to anyone. We all live by the seasons. We just don't think about it. But Indian people did think about it, and they made certain that, you didn't want to miss the harvest of anything. And there was food throughout the spring to the fall. And during the winter they would survive on deer, but they had to know when things were to be harvested. And people talk about Indian time, and they refer to Indian time as being late. But the real meaning of Indian time was when it was ripe to do something. And that's what they did. They didn't dare miss a harvest, because it would cost them dearly in the resources and food that they had to provide to their families.
How do you tell children that in the state of California that it was still legal to have an Indian as a slave 4 years after the Emancipation Proclamation?
Well, it depends on the age of the child and their understanding level. Most of the history they teach about Indians up until recently has not been correct. And they glossed over the real horrendous parts of what they did to the native people. And you don't like to keep reminding the children about that, but you can't ever let them forget that didn't happen, because it's a part of history. And now, with the change in the education books, it's being told more to the fact than it was at any time previously.
We look at some of the plaques of the gold rush, but there's no mention of Indian labor, of the massacres that happened. Is this something that we are ashamed of?
Well, when you put things in perspective, it becomes very clear, because Indian people had no rights until 1924, when they were given citizenship. Before that, they were considered a nuisance. They were just kept for, doing labor, and nobody really gave any recognition to Indian people until they became citizens.
But even after that, there was a term called termination.
Well, the federal government, who assumed the responsibility for the care of Indian people, really had no idea what it was that they could do to benefit the Indian people. They thought what they could do, and as many people still think now, we know what's best for you, so you don't have to say anything. We know what's best for you and what will work. Well, unfortunately, they didn't know, and they still don't know. It's not until the Indian people, through their sovereign right, have taken the responsibility to determine their own destiny.
Is this tribe here an example of how self-reliance, self-governance can work?
Well, we've always been a very progressive tribe, and I always tell people that prior to 2001, you had to look back at a long period of time, sometimes 30, 40 years, to really see any visible change in the lifestyles and the economic levels. But within the past 5 years, it's been unbelievable. And this is because we've taken control of our own destiny. We've made decisions that we